It's Elizabeth Huston from Elpis Astrology at elpisastrology.com. Thanks for joining me today. I'm doing this video from essentially the end of the first week of March through to the 31st of March 2018. So I'm going to start off with Mars. Mars is in Sagittarius and it will be trining Uranus, planet of unexpected lightning bolts, inspiration, and surprises. It's going to be forming a trine, which is favorable energy, on the 11th or 12th of March. Now, I view Sagittarius as a sign and Uranus as a planet as very spiritual, just different type energies. So I really think this is going to be a time of potential epiphanies, enlightenments, and real surprises with regards to how you really feel about your spiritual life. And this is also at the same time when we have Mercury and Venus in the early degrees of Aries. And to me, this says, just as a general influence, having Mercury, planet of thought, speaking, and Venus, our values, what we value. It can be money and beauty too. But to me, going with that, this says this might be a time when you feel you really know what you want to do, that you just have this overriding desire to say something and do something, and that you really put a value around it. So I would say around this time period, the 11th or 12th, so before the new moon on the 17th, just take some time to check out some rules and regulations, because with that Mercury and Venus squaring Saturn, it really says that you could be stopped in your tracks from doing something that you really want to do. Now, both Mercury and Venus will also be trining the North Node in Leo, which is our collective destiny, on the 17th and 18th of March. So that's around that new moon. So there's a real influence this month of Mercury and Venus. And so I could pay attention to everything I've just told you, but I'll just sum it up by saying that initially you're going to be feeling and thinking and valuing a certain path that you want to go on, a certain thing that you want to do. And it's going to be kind of overriding where you really feel you need to do it. But if you could just take some time, that doesn't mean you won't do it, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying with that influence of a square, which is kind of saying, hey, just let's slow down here and take a look at things. And it being Saturn, which is rules, regulations, structures, walls. If you don't do that, check off those boxes. Check with an authority if you have to. If there's rules and regulations that you've got to look up that also involve something with regards to what you need to do. Do you have the money for it? Venus is also money. Venus square Saturn could be difficulties with money. So just do your due diligence on that. It doesn't mean these things aren't going to happen, that the things that you think and are expressing you want to do, like talking out loud to people, it just says do some due diligence and check rules and regulations and check in with authority to make sure you're doing the right thing, and that you don't have to do something. It could be something very small, but this could hold you up otherwise, okay? Now, the fact that we have these trining, both these planets, Mercury and Venus, trine the North Node in Leo around this new moon is significant. These personal planets basically are talking about the way we think and kind of the way we value ourselves and just our general values. So these are very intimately tied in with expressing your authentic self. In my past videos, I talked about what does the North Nodes of the moon at this point in time in Leo, what does it mean for us? What does it mean for me individually? And it really is a time that the universe is asking us to express our authentic self and to do it creatively. So this is all tied in. All these things that I've just talked about are all tied in, I think, to our self-worth and what we think of ourselves literally in our head, and then how we express ourselves with regards to our value. So you're going to be given some opportunities. This trine with the North Nodes are opportunities, but those opportunities will be predicated by you checking out those rules and regulations earlier on, like I mentioned, even though you feel you want to move forward. Okay, enough said. just rewind this and listen to it again if you didn't quite get what I had to say. Okay, so let's talk about the new moon. We've got a new moon in Pisces. It's at 26 degrees, 53 minutes on the 17th of March. It's at 6:11 a.m. Pacific time. It will conjunct Chiron. Now, Chiron is in Pisces and has been in there for some time, but Chiron's going to be leaving Pisces. So it's in its last breaths, its last degrees of the water sign, spiritual sign, no boundaries, Pisces, before it's going to go in next month into pioneering sign of let's move forward, Aries. So to me, this is kind of a tie-up of any kind of healing type things that you might want to set up. This is a spirituality type thing, so if there's spiritual things that you may want to either practice, go into, discover, enter into, so maybe there's some new spiritual practices that you want to take a look at to help heal you, this would be a time to initiate that. This is a new moon. But certainly there's going to be a soothing balm, Chiron, in Pisces, and being a new moon. So new moon means the moon as well as the sun is going to be in the same sign of Pisces. So we've got both the luminaries being affected by Chiron and the new moon. So I feel this is a very positive influence with regards to feeling very, very good. You may have some very inspirational dreams that help you understand where you should be going to. You may feel dreamy. You may feel a little bit tired as well. That could be the influence of Pisces. The only negative thing that I see really happening of significance is that Mars, which is in Sagittarius, is squaring this moon and the sun. So what does that mean? On the surface, they could just bring up doubts, where at the beginning of the month, I think a lot of people were feeling doubtful. There was a lot of Pisces happening at the beginning of March. Doubtfulness, lack of direction, literal fogginess. I don't know where I'm going and I just can't think straight. But this may bring up a little bit, and maybe some vestiges of that influence still there with this Mars. Mars is energy, and the moon is emotions. The sun is our inner essence. So we could just have a little bit of you know, tugging at our heartstrings and our minds of saying, you know, I'm not sure. Should I be doing this? Give it some time. You don't have to act directly on the new moon, the 17th of March. You can leave it for a few days. This will pass, and a wide open path will come open to you. We have Jupiter that went retrograde on the 8th of 9th of March. Obviously, that's going to continue through. That will continue through to the 10th of July, by the way. I don't see this as a really negative experience. I think going retrograde, Jupiter's just going to provide us with more opportunities to reflect on all the things that came up. Now, in particular, the time period I'm talking about is around the 11th or the 10th, 11th, 12th of December 2017 up to now, around the 10th of March. What's come up for you? And some of these things could be just small. They could just be niggly things. They could be large as well, where maybe you've entered into therapy or have just entered into some psychological therapy, or just re-examining, you know, how you look at things. Are you looking at things through the right perspective? It also represents sex. It represents money to some extent too. These are all areas that you could be going over between now and the 10th of July. Scorpios in particular are going to be affected by this. This is a major rewind for them. So this is really, if you look at the a basic sun sign chart, this is their first house for Scorpio. So, but I would say all Scorpios are going to have to go back and take a look at things and decide what they want to keep in their life, what they want to change, and then what they want to get rid of. But that also affects all of us. What really has been hanging around there in the deep dark recesses of our minds, our bodies, that just don't need to be there anymore. We're going to make up our minds to get rid of whatever that is and come out of this around the 10th of July. Now, the degree point that Jupiter will go forward on the 10th of July is around 13 degrees of Scorpio. So look into your chart and see if you have anything in, especially water signs, around 13 degrees. So that would be, you know, Cancer, Pisces, and obviously Scorpio is where it's actually happening. I actually have my ascendant in Cancer, so it'll be interesting to see what might pop up for me. But this is going to affect you a lot more because it goes forward at the 13-degree mark. All right, so I think that's the new moon. There are other things happening, but those are what I feel are the most significant things. We talked about the Mercury-Venus trine the North Node in Leo on the 17th of 18th of March. Really think that's going to be significant about giving us some news and real understanding about the value of ourselves, and that it's important to authentically and creatively express ourselves. I can't say that or emphasize that enough during this latter part of March, but it's also going to carry into April too. We have the Sun will go into Aries on the 20th of March. And so that's the official day of spring, the spring equinox. How awesome. But at the same time, or just after actually, 9 days later, that Sun in Aries is going to be squaring Saturn. And it's going to be close to a Mars, which is going to be at the end of this month in Capricorn, out of Sagittarius, also conjuncting Saturn. So you might just want to make a note around the 29th. I would give that a berth of 28th, 29th, 30th, maybe even leading up to that full moon on the 31st. When you have a Sun square Saturn, and then it's close to also that Mars conjuncting Saturn, it really says to me that there could be some real tension at the very least. So it's going to express for all of us in different ways. I would really take a look to see where the Sun, which is in Aries, falls in your chart, and then where Saturn falls in your chart, because that will dictate where Mars is going to be at that time. And those houses are going to be affected, but at the very least it's going to be tension. Could be arguments, could be fights. You could be up, I mean, Saturn is up against authority. So again, squares don't have to be negative, but because there's a conjunction with Mars of energy, there could be a bit of a blow up around this time. And it could be all to do with the structures we want to set down, or maybe the structures we want to get rid of, including the rules we want to get rid of. So collectively, we may see some real arguments towards the end of this month of March in the collective, like on the news and the newspaper and that, with regards to people really putting their foot down and saying, I do not like these rules, I do not like these regulations, and I do not like this authority, and really fighting against it. Again, I always caution people, I mean, you should stand up for your rights for sure, but do it in a way that is peaceful. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. We have the first of 3 Mercury retrogrades start this month. So the Mercury retrograde is going to be in Aries too. So Aries is the latter part of the month. Aries is a big influence in us. And I don't think that's a negative thing. It just means we want to do things right now, right away. With Mercury retrograde, it says you're not going to be doing things right now, right away. With the retrograde, I mean, I do view retrogrades as an influence for sure, but I don't go and see that it's going to, you know, cause major meltdowns of things. Yeah, sure, with Mercury retrograde, you should always, you know, back up your computer and just take care with any kind of communications, period, not just computers, but anything that is ruled by Mercury. The 2 signs that are directly affected by any Mercury retrograde are the 2 signs that are ruled by Mercury. And so that would be Gemini and Virgo. This is in Aries. So in particular, Aries may have a little bit of rewinding to do with regards to communication. Maybe they said something earlier in the month that they'll have to take back. Now this retrograde starts on the 22nd of March and ends on the 15th of April. I wanted to mention earlier, and I didn't, but I'm going to mention it now anyway. So for those that are astronomers as well as astrologers, there's an interesting sort of configuration that's happening actually right now around the 10th of March, but it will continue on for at least a few days. Now this is the northern hemisphere. There will be a number of planets. So we've got Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn will be lining up in the sky. And it's actually very interesting because these will turn up when you look at them with your eyes. You can look at them with a telescope too, but if you just look at them with your eyes, they'll look kind of like stars, and just the Mars will have a slightly reddish hue. But what's interesting is that these will all line up. And so for the northern hemisphere, it will be pre-dawn and post-sunset that you will see these. And when we look at Mercury and Mars again, on the 18th of March, this will be lit up by the crescent moon. So also look out around the 18th of March to see, look for the crescent moon, okay, and then look on either side of that or close to it. You will see both Mercury and Venus close together, shining, and so that crescent moon will point that out in terms of where the location is. But these are interesting times. Now, if we look at the actual direction, it's going to be south-southeast pre-dawn for the Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn lineup of planets. And then the Mercury and Venus will be around the 15th of March. And that's going to be sort of in the late, sort of the evening time, because Venus will be rising star at that point. Now in the southern hemisphere, it'll be April that you'll be seeing the Mercury-Venus conjunction in the sky, as well as the Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So southern hemisphere can look forward to that same configuration in April. So we end the month with a full moon. So there are 2 full moons that are in the month of March. One opened and one's closing it. And again, when I talk about 2 moons in a month, yeah, you have these on a semi-regular basis. It's just part of, movement of the moon. But to me, I think these are significant because I see them as bookends. Full moons are endings or culminations. So it's like the beginning of the month, we were given the heads up, things are going to end. And then towards the end of the month, the universe is saying, they're really going to end. So if there are things that you need to let go of, especially with regards to relationships, and why do I say relationships? Because this full moon is actually in Libra. And on the 31st of March is when it will occur. The other thing that we have happening at this time is that Venus will be conjuncting Uranus at this full moon. So to me, this says there's potential for 2 things. Breakups in relationships, as well as new ones being formed. Because it's a full moon, it is an ending of things, so it could mean there's an ending of someone, say, marriage. It could mean the ending of somebody's stay as a single person, where that ends and they actually meet someone as a result of Venus, planet of love, conjuncting Uranus, unexpected. So this will be an unexpected thing. And we also have Mercury on its own will be trining the north nodes in Leo at the same time. So to me, tying up this full moon in Libra, the Mercury trining the north nodes, Venus conjuncting Uranus, those influence all together, to me says this is the final say on a relationship, whether it's a relationship that's finally ending or a relationship that's finally beginning. Maybe one that's not had a chance to manifest itself, that's been kind of in the background. The other influence that we have that's positive is that Jupiter will be sextiling Pluto. Now Jupiter sextile Pluto happens a number of times throughout 2018, but it's very close in its aspect, both Jupiter and Mars, at this full moon in Libra. So to me this says that this is a very benevolent influence, Jupiter sextile Pluto. Sextiles are usually about opportunities. So to me this says, take this opportunity to transform. Pluto is all about transformation. Whether you want it or not, you have to transform. Being a sextile, you're going to be given opportunities to do that. And Jupiter is just emphasizing and highlighting the fact that it's okay. Let it go, because once you let it go, new opportunities are going to come up that are just much better for you. Jupiter's all about trying to give you the best, give you gifts. And so you literally could have gifts manifest as well as opportunities. But I think this is a nice way to end my video, is to remember that this whole Jupiter sextile Pluto is an influence throughout 2018, but will certainly show up on this full moon in Libra on the 31st of March. So look to that full moon, even though there may be some negative events happening, that this is your opportunity to look for opportunities that help you transform into a better you. Because the North Nodes are there, do it in a creative way and make sure you're expressing your authentic self. Thanks so much for joining me. Please come back and see me again. I'd love to do your personal chart. Go to my website, elvisastrology.com. I leave notes actually in text with my videos, so if you're watching this on YouTube, you can look through those notes and get a direct link to my website. Sign up on my website. I do actually post for new moons and full moons, and all these things are free, and all my videos are posted on my website as well. But I would love to do your chart. Go to my services tab on my website, send me an email, and we'll set something up. Take care, everyone, and enjoy spring.